Morgan Hayes moved through the Metropolitan Museum's grand ballroom like poetry in motion. Her champagne silk gown caught the light from crystal chandeliers overhead, transforming her into a vision of elegance. As New York's most sought-after event coordinator, she had orchestrated this children's hospital charity gala down to the last orchid arrangement. "Perfect," she whispered, surveying her handiwork. 500 of Manhattan's elite mingled beneath gilded ceilings, each donation representing hope for children fighting battles too great for their tiny frames. Morgan paused by the auction display, admiring a painting of children playing in a sunlit garden. The artist had captured childhood's fleeting innocence in a way that made her heart ache with appreciation. This piece would surely fetch thousands for the hospital's new pediatric wing. "Excuse me, oh God, I'm so sorry." The deep voice came a moment before warm liquid splashed across her gown. Champagne bloomed across the silk like golden watercolors, seeping irreversibly into the delicate fabric. Time suspended as Morgan looked up into eyes the color of stormy seas. The man before her was tall, his powerful frame filling a perfectly tailored tuxedo. Dark hair fell slightly across his forehead, and a faint scar near his left temple gave character to what might otherwise have been intimidating perfection. "Please, let me help," he said, mortification evident in his expression as he pulled a handkerchief from his pocket. "It's fine," Morgan replied, though they both knew the dress was ruined. "No, it's not." "That's a Valentino, isn't it?" "I'm Blake Reynolds, and I've just destroyed what I'm guessing is a 5-figure gown." The name registered immediately. Blake Reynolds, billionaire tech innovator whose face graced business magazines monthly. The man who'd revolutionized renewable energy technology and donated millions to children's causes. "Morgan Hayes," she offered, surprising herself with her calm. "And yes, it's Valentino, but silk has survived worse fates." His eyebrows rose. "You're remarkably understanding for someone whose evening I've just ruined." "You haven't ruined anything, Mr. Reynolds. Though I admit, I didn't expect to see Manhattan's most eligible bachelor at a children's charity event." Something vulnerable flickered across his features. Children's causes hold special meaning for those who understand what it means to be alone in the world. The admission hung between them, revealing depths she hadn't expected. For all his wealth, there was something in his eyes that spoke of old wounds and genuine compassion. "The painting you were admiring," Blake continued, gesturing toward the auction display. "It captures something essential about childhood, doesn't it? That pure joy we spend our adult lives trying to recapture." Morgan studied him with new interest. "That's exactly what I was thinking. Children remind us what pure hope looks like." The orchestra began a waltz, and Blake extended his hand with surprising hesitancy. "Would you honor me with a dance?" "It seems the least I can do after baptizing your dress with Dom Perignon." Logic warned against it. Blake Reynolds had a reputation as Manhattan's most notorious heartbreaker. Yet something in his gaze suggested depths unexplored, a man yearning for connection beyond society's shallow waters. "One dance," she conceded, placing her hand in his dot. The moment their fingers intertwined, electricity sparked between them with startling intensity. Neither could possibly know how that single dance would change their lives forever. Part 2. Unexpected Encounters. 3 days after the gala, Morgan sat in her downtown office reviewing proposals for an upcoming corporate event when her assistant burst through the door. "There's a delivery for you," she announced, eyes wide with excitement. Actually, several deliveries. Morgan followed her to the reception area and froze. The entire space had been transformed into a garden of white roses, hundreds of them in crystal vases, covering every surface. "This came with them," her assistant said, handing over an envelope of heavy cream stationery. Inside was a handwritten note, "For the dress I ruined, though I suspect the champagne improved it. Dinner tonight?" Blake's phone number was scrawled at the bottom, alongside a sketch of a champagne flute tipped sideways. Morgan's pragmatic mind shouted warnings. Men like Blake Reynolds didn't pursue women like her dedicated professionals, without family connections or trust funds. Yet her fingers were already dialing. Reynolds. His voice was deeper on the phone, resonant in a way that traveled down her spine. It's Morgan Hayes. My office looks like a botanical garden exploding in it. His laugh was warm, unguarded. Too much? Slightly theatrical, she admitted, smiling despite herself. I've never been accused of subtlety. Have dinner with me tonight. Why? Because I haven't stopped thinking about our dance since Saturday. She hesitated. Professional caution, warring with undeniable attraction. I don't date clients. I'm not your client. I merely attended an event you coordinated. Semantics, Mr. Reynolds. Blake, he corrected. And sometimes semantics make all the difference. One dinner, Morgan. If you're bored, you never have to see me again. Boredom isn't what concerns me. What does concern you? Your reputation precedes you. Most reputations contain more fiction than truth. Give me a chance to show you the difference. Against her better judgment, Morgan agreed to dinner that evening. Blake sent a car, not the ostentatious limousine she'd expected, but a classic Bentley with buttery leather seats. It delivered her to a rooftop restaurant she'd never heard of, hidden away from the society scene. Blake waited beside a table overlooking Manhattan's glittering skyline. He wore no tie, his collar open at the throat, making him appear more approachable than a polished businessman from the gala. I was afraid you'd change your mind, he admitted as he held her chair. I considered it, Morgan confessed. 3 times on the way over. What convinced you to come? She studied him, noting the genuine curiosity in his expression. Curiosity. I wanted to see if the man behind the public persona matched the one who quoted poetry while dancing with a champagne-soaked stranger. Blake's smile held surprising shyness. And what's your initial assessment? The jury's still deliberating, Morgan replied, but returned his smile with one of her own as they dined beneath the stars. Morgan discovered a man far different from the tabloid version, thoughtful, quick to laugh at himself, and passionately committed to causes that mattered. By dessert, she realized with startling clarity that she was in dangerous territory indeed. Over the following weeks, Blake dismantled Morgan's carefully constructed defenses, one unexpected gesture at a time. When she mentioned her love for obscure jazz musicians, tickets to a sold-out performance appeared at her office. When she casually remarked about a childhood dream of seeing Paris, he didn't offer to whisk her away on his private jet instead. He arranged a French cooking class where they laughed until tears streamed down their faces as they failed spectacularly at making soufflés. Not what I expected, Morgan admitted one evening as they walked through Central Park, autumn leaves crunching beneath their feet. What did you expect? Blake asked, his hand warm against hers. Someone more ... She hesitated, searching for the right word. Arrogant? Entitled? Self-absorbed? He supplied with a self-deprecating smile. Yes, she admitted honestly. Your public image doesn't do you justice. His expression sobered. The public sees what sells magazines. The bored billionaire playboy makes better copy than the workaholic who falls asleep reading engineering journals. They stopped by the lake, moonlight silvering the water's surface. Blake turned to face her, his expression suddenly vulnerable. I've spent my life building walls, Morgan, protecting myself from people who wanted proximity to my bank account rather than me. Then you looked at me across that ballroom with champagne-soaked silk clinging to you, and somehow saw past every defense I'd constructed. Morgan's heart thundered against her ribs. I'm still seeing past them. That terrifies me, he admitted, quietly. It terrifies me too, she whispered, when he kissed her. It wasn't with practiced expertise, but with genuine emotion that made her knees weak. His hands framed her face with reverence, as though she were something precious he feared might shatter. The following Saturday, Blake took her to a brownstone in Brooklyn. The neighborhood was pleasant, but unremarkable nothing like the luxury penthouses or Hampton estates she'd imagined he frequented. "What are we doing here?" she asked as he unlocked the front door. "Meeting the most important people in my life." Inside, the sound of children's laughter echoed down the hallway. Blake led her to a sunlit room where 6 children of varying ages worked on art projects under the guidance of a gray-haired woman with kind eyes. "Uncle Blake," they chorused, abandoning their crafts to surround him. Morgan watched in astonishment as the powerful businessman dropped to his knees, hugging each child with genuine affection. "This is St. James' House," he explained later as they walked through the garden. "A home for children who've lost their parents. My parents died when I was 8. I lived in a place like this until I aged out of the system." Understanding dawned like sunrise. "That's why children's charities ... mean everything to me," he finished. "This place is my real investment. These kids are my family." In that moment, as autumn sunlight gilded his profile and children's laughter floated through open windows, Morgan realized she was falling irrevocably in love with the man beyond the billions. And it terrified her more than any champagne-ruined dress ever could. Part 4. The Storm. Breaks 2 months into their relationship, the tabloids discovered them. Morgan awoke to her phone exploding with notifications and her building's entrance swarming with photographers. "Billionaire's new flame. Who is Morgan Hayes?" screamed headlines, accompanied by grainy photos of them holding hands in Central Park. More disturbing were the insinuations. Event planner catches ultimate client, and Reynolds' latest conquest. How long will she last? Blake appeared at her door within the hour, security guards clearing a path through the media circus. "I'm so sorry," he said, anguish evident in his expression. "This is exactly what I wanted to protect you from." Morgan's carefully organized life was suddenly chaos. Clients called questioning her professionalism. Old college acquaintances reached out feigning friendship while fishing for details. Her mother phoned from Ohio, confused by reports that her daughter was dating some sort of technology king. "It will blow over," Blake promised, but they both recognized the hollow optimism in his words. The final blow came when Morgan lost a major client, a conservative financial firm, uncomfortable with her newfound notoriety. Years of professional reputation building, undone by association. "This is my fault," Blake said that evening in her apartment, pacing like a caged animal. "I should have been more careful. Should have protected you better. I'm not something fragile that needs protection," Morgan countered, though exhaustion edged her voice. "I knew who you were when this started." "Did you?" "Because I'm not sure I did." His voice cracked with emotion. "I've spent years building this life, convinced that wealth and success could fill the emptiness left by my parents' death. Then I met you, and suddenly nothing else mattered except the way you saw me. Not as Blake Reynolds, the billionaire, but just ... Blake." He knelt before her chair, taking her hands in his. "I love you, Morgan. I love your organized mind and your compassionate heart. I love how you plan everything to perfection, but dance with abandon. I love that you see me really see me." Morgan's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too. But this," she gestured toward the window where camera flashes still occasionally illuminated the street below, "this isn't sustainable. My business is suffering. My privacy is gone. Then we'll leave," Blake said simply. "We'll go somewhere my name doesn't precede me." "And do what?" "I've built my entire career here. Build something new. Together." The simplicity of his solution stunned her. "You'd walk away from everything? Your company? Your life here?" "In a heartbeat," he said without hesitation. "None of it means anything without you." Morgan searched his eyes, finding nothing but sincere devotion. Yet fear gripped her heart, fear of losing herself in his world. of becoming merely an appendage to Blake Reynolds' legacy. "I need time," she whispered. "Time to think." Pain flashed across his features, but he nodded. "I understand." When he left that night, Morgan wondered if she had just made the greatest mistake of her life. For a week, Morgan threw herself into salvaging her business, ignoring the hollow ache in her chest. Blake respected her request for space, though white roses continued arriving daily with notes containing just 2 words: "Miss you." Her assistant, Jade, finally confronted her. "You're miserable." "I'm focused," Morgan corrected, not looking up from her laptop. "You're hiding," Jade countered. "That man loves you enough to walk away from an empire, and you're pretending spreadsheets can fill the hole he left." Morgan's composure cracked. "It's not that simple. Love never is. But from where I'm standing, you found the real thing and you're running scared." That evening, Morgan visited the children's hospital where she'd first met Blake. The pediatric art therapy room he'd funded was filled with young patients creating colorful masterpieces. "Ms. Hayes," the program director greeted her warmly. "What a wonderful surprise. The children have been asking when you'd visit again." Morgan blinked in confusion. "Again?" "Oh yes, you and Mr. Reynolds were such a hit last month. The children still talk about how you helped them with their murals." Morgan felt her heart constrict. Blake had never mentioned bringing her name into his philanthropy. "Actually," the director continued, "we're expanding the program thanks to Mr. Reynolds' new endowment. He said it was your vision originally art therapy centers in children's hospitals nationwide." Tears pricked Morgan's eyes. She'd mentioned that dream once, during their first dinner together. He hadn't just listened, he'd made it reality, without fanfare or expectation of credit. On impulse, she took a taxi to Brooklyn, to the St. James House. The gray-haired woman, Mrs. Jenkins, she remembered, answered the door. "Morgan, the children have been asking about you. Is Blake with you?" "No, Morgan hesitated. "I actually came to ask you something." "What was he like?" "As a child?" Mrs. Jenkins invited her in for tea, sharing stories of a serious boy who built elaborate structures with blocks, who read engineering books beyond his years, who never cried where others could see. "He was always different," Mrs. Jenkins said, "determined to prove his worth in a world that had taken everything from him. Until you, I've never seen him truly happy." As twilight descended, Morgan made her decision. She took a taxi to Blake's penthouse, heart hammering against her ribs as the elevator ascended 60 floors. His expression when he opened the door nearly undid her hope, warring with resignation, love with prepared heartbreak. "I made a mistake," she said simply. "I was afraid of losing myself in your world. What I didn't realize was that you've been building a world for us, both one foundation, stone at a time." Blake reached for her with trembling hands. "Does this mean—" "It means I love you," Morgan whispered. "Your wealth, your name, they're just circumstance. It's your heart I've fallen in love with." When he kissed her, it felt like coming home. 1 year later, Morgan stood in the Metropolitan Museum's grand ballroom, surveying the transformation. Tonight's Children's Hospital Gala marked the anniversary of their first meeting, and as event coordinator, she'd outdone herself. The champagne silk dress she wore was an intentional homage to that fateful night, though this one was specially designed with subtle golden patterns that looked remarkably like champagne stains. "Beautiful," came Blake's voice from behind her. "Though I've always maintained the original looked better after my clumsy introduction." Morgan turned, heart still skipping at the sight of him after all this time. "I believe your exact words were, 'I've ruined everything.'" "Biggest understatement of my life," he agreed, drawing her into his arms. "I had no idea I was beginning everything." The past year had brought challenges and triumphs in equal measure. They'd weathered media scrutiny, merged their worlds without either losing identity, and built something neither had thought possible: genuine partnership. Morgan had maintained her event, planning business while also directing the national expansion of children's art therapy centers. Blake had restructured his companies to allow more time for what truly mattered, the family they were building together. "I have something for you," Blake said, leading her to the spot where champagne had first splashed across designer silk. The same painting of children playing in a sunlit garden hung on display, the one he'd purchased at auction that first night. Beneath it stood an easel covered with velvet cloth. "What's this?" Morgan asked as he gestured for her to unveil it. She gasped when she pulled away the fabric. There, captured in oils, was a scene from the St. James House children painting alongside Blake and Morgan. Sunshine streaming through windows, faces alight with joy and possibility. The artist worked from photographs, Blake explained. "It's being auctioned tonight, with proceeds funding 10 new art therapy centers." Tears blurred Morgan's vision. "It's perfect." "Not quite," Blake said softly. He reached into his pocket and knelt before her, opening a small velvet box. Inside nestled a ring, not the ostentatious diamond she might have expected, but an elegant emerald surrounded by smaller stones. "The green reminded me of that dress, the one I ruined and the one that changed my life," he explained, voice thick with emotion. "Morgan Hayes, you've taught me that family isn't just what you're born into, but what you build together. Will you marry me?" As hundreds of New York's elite watched, Morgan pulled Blake to his feet. "You may have ruined my dress," she whispered against his lips, "but you've made everything else in my life immeasurably better." When she said yes, applause erupted throughout the ballroom. Later, as they danced beneath the same crystal chandeliers that had witnessed their beginning, Blake whispered in her ear, "I never believed in fate until champagne introduced me to the love of my life." Morgan smiled up at him. "I'd say that champagne was the best thing that ever happened to my wardrobe. Sometimes," she reflected as they swayed to the music, "life's most beautiful stories begin with what appears to be disaster. Sometimes a ruined dress leads to a perfect love. And sometimes a man who believes he's ruined, everything ends up gaining a heart that makes him whole."